Okay, this first section is about the able-bodied adults and work requirements.
This section expands the applicability of work requirements for SNAP recipients who are able-bodied adults without dependents, ABODs. As background, these SNAP recipients have work-related requirements in addition to the general SNAP work registration and employment and training requirements. Specifically, the section amends the exemptions to this requirement. First, the section applies the work requirements for ABODs to adults who are not over 65 years old, whereas these requirements currently apply to adults who are not over 55 years old. Second, the ABOD exemption for a parent or household member with responsibility for a dependent child is restricted to a dependent child under the age of 7. Currently, the child must be under the age of 18. This section includes an exception for a person who is 1. Responsible for a dependent child who is 7 years of age or older, and 2. Married to and resides with an individual who complies with the SNAP work requirements. In addition, the section specifies that current ABOD exemptions set to sunset on October 1, 2030 will sunset. These exemptions from the ABOD work requirements are for homeless individuals, veterans, and certain foster care individuals, those who are 24 years old or younger and were in foster care on the date of attaining 18 years of age or a higher age.
Yeah, so that's basically saying that people without dependents that are getting SNAP benefits may be asked to get a job, right? That's one of the main rumors that I heard. You there, T?
I'm here. I'm so sorry. Yep, it's the work. They have work requirements. 20 hours. They have to work 20 hours a week, and that is the rumor that I heard too. Well, that's the facts that I heard. The rumors are a whole nother story.
Yeah, the rumors that I heard was just that they were going to require people to work, and the people that I know that were worried about it were just the people with kids that just really can't work because of how the schooling works.
Mhm. So for somebody with kids, when your
This
kid
just
turns
said
7,
that that was just saying that it applied to um, the people without dependents, ABODs, ABOD
about
work requirements,
okay,
able-bodied adults without dependents. That's an ABOD.
okay, able body.
And I kind of agree with that. If you're an
I do too.
able-bodied adult without dependents, then get a job.
Right. You don't work, you don't eat.
Right. I mean, it's what's keeping you from working if you don't have no kids and you're able-bodied.
Exactly.
What's stopping you?
Exactly. I can't even believe that it's people on there who are able that's not working. Seriously. Like what are you doing? And that's snap. So like what are people doing for money? And 20 hours is not a lot. I guess it would be for somebody who's used to being lazy, but 20 hours is half of a full-time job. Well, part-time job. So put in those
Listen to this section.
applications.
Right, right. Get your dusty, lazy butt up
Yep.
off the couch, sitting there smoking blunts with a bridge card or whatever you got, and get a job, Dusty.
Exactly.
All right. Listen to this section.
Secretary 10007. This section reduces the amount that USDA may pay a state agency for administrative costs for the operation of SNAP to 25% of all administrative costs, from the current 50%, thereby increasing the state share of administrative costs from 50% to 75%. Secretary 10008. This section modifies the general work requirements of the SNAP program to cover individuals who are over the age of 17 and under the age of 65. Currently, the general work requirements apply to individuals who are over the age of 15 and under the age of 60. It also exempts parents or members of a household with responsibility for the care of a child who is under the age of 7, under the age of 6 under current law, from the requirements.
Yeah, I think that's kind of self-explanatory right there.
Yeah, I do too.
What other rumors have you heard?
Oh my goodness. Let me see. SSI, immigration. Uh, they're gonna. So when I say immigration, I mean as far as them not getting Medicaid. So people are saying that they're not receiving uh, Medicaid, and I would have to say food stamps and SSI.
Okay, let's see what we can find. This is education and workforce.
Did I say?
Student.
Yeah, I said immigrants.
Yeah, you did mention that.
We're chopping through this bill. We were reviewing the big beautiful
This
bill.
looks interesting right here.
All right. Let's see what we have.
This subtitle revises loan repayment options for federal student loans. Secretary 30021. This section terminates all current student loan repayment plans for loans disbursed on or after July 1, 2026. The Department of Education, ED, may only offer borrowers two options for repayment of federal student loans: a standard repayment plan, with the length of the repayment term determined by the total amount borrowed, and an income-based repayment plan, to be known as the Repayment Assistance Plan. Secretary 30022. This section eliminates economic hardship and unemployment deferments beginning on July 1, 2025. It also reduces the total period a borrower may be in forbearance. A borrower who is serving in a medical or dental internship or residency program may be eligible for a forbearance in which no interest accrues for the first 4 12-month intervals. However, interest does accrue for any subsequent 12-month interval. Secretary 30023. This section allows borrowers to rehabilitate a defaulted loan twice, currently, only once. However, beginning on July 1, 2025, the borrower must pay a minimum payment amount of $10. Secretary 30024. This section allows payments under the new Repayment Assistance Plan to count as qualifying payments for purposes of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness (PSLF) program. The section also specifies that a public service job, for purposes of the PSLF program, does not include time served in a medical or dental internship or residency program by an individual who, as of June 30, 2025, has not borrowed a Federal Direct Plus loan or a Federal Direct Unsubsidized Stafford loan.
Ooh, that's got some good and bad there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Like that might sucky, a little sucky ducky, a little bit.
Yeah, that one cuts both ways right there.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, like you said, some good and bad.
Yeah, like it eliminates the economic hardship and unemployment deferments. Ooh, ooh.
Oh, yeah.
As of July 1st, that's kind of nasty.
Right. Well, one thing about it, we know it ain't just gonna be a couple people. Hey, they might
Nope.
have to change some standards in other areas. Like, hey, everybody got student loan debt. You know how if you had student loan debt, you couldn't go to school till it's paid off, or
Well,
you
to
have
be
to.
fair, it's got dates up there. It's going to apply uh to loans after that were issued after July 1st. So these are changes
This
going
year,
forward.
did they say 25 July 1st?
One was 26 and one was 25.
Okay.
So that's these are loans going forward.
Okay.
Anything previous, issued previous to that is going to uh, be set to previous standards. So
Okay.
these changes are only going to affect new loans.
Okay. Okay.
This next section is about Pell grants right here. I don't think anybody has any issues with
All
Pell
right.
grants. None affecting the the brown and black communities, quote unquote.
Let's see here. Some of what about the Medicaid cuts? Because they are, I believe, they are doing some cuts.
Yep, I'm looking for that too. But this section right here caught my eye.
Okay.
Let me play it and see why this section caught my eye. Because I was sort of reading through it.
Mhm.
This section requires IAs participating in federal student loan programs to make annual risk-sharing payments based on the non-repayment balance of student loan cohorts. The section also outlines penalties for late or missing payments. For example, the section prohibits an IA from offering direct loans to students if the IA has not made a payment within 12 months of receiving a notification from ED. The section also prohibits an IA from offering direct loans or awarding Pell Grants if the IA has not made a risk-sharing payment in 18 months. If an IA fails to make a payment within 2 years, the IA may not participate in federal student loan programs for a minimum of 10 years. The section's changes take effect beginning with award year 2028 to 2029. Secretary 30042. This section establishes the Promoting Real Opportunities to Maximize Investments and Savings in Education, Promise, grant program. To receive a Promise grant, an IA must meet maximum total price guarantee requirements, as outlined in the section. These grants may be used to carry out activities related to post-secondary affordability, access, and student success.
Okay, it said I, but that's IHE, which is Institute of Higher Education. Sometimes AI is stupid.
I was saying, I was trying to say that's something in there that I'm interested in knowing what they came up with the AI.
No, it said IHE
No,
Institute.
I'm saying what that's in the field too about AI.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll cross that when we get to it.
Yeah.
This is another section that caught my eye right here.
This part repeals certain programs established under the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 and rescinds certain funds provided under the Act. Secretary 42101. This section repeals a program under which the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, provides 1. Grants and rebates to replace certain medium-duty vehicles, for example school buses, and heavy-duty vehicles, for example garbage trucks, with zero-emission vehicles, and 2. Awards to replace such vehicles in communities located in areas designated as non-attainment areas under the Clean Air Act, for example areas that do not meet national air quality standards. Secretary 42102. This section repeals a program under which the EPA provides incentives to reduce air pollution at certain ports. Under the program, the EPA awards rebates and grants to port authorities and other eligible entities to 1. Purchase or install equipment and technology to reduce pollution at ports, 2. Conduct any relevant planning or permitting in connection with those purchases, and 3. Develop climate action plans. The program also provides additional funding for rebates and grants for carrying out such activities in ports located in areas designated as non-attainment areas under the Clean Air Act. Secretary 42103. This section repeals the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which provides financial and technical assistance to states and other eligible recipients to help enable low-income and disadvantaged communities carry out activities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Secretary 42104. This section repeals an EPA program that gives grants, rebates, and loans under the Energy Policy Act of 2005 to identify and reduce diesel emissions resulting from goods movement, for example distribution of raw materials and consumer products, facilities as well as vehicles servicing those facilities in low-income and disadvantaged communities.
So in other words, I said we can deal with a little bit more pollution to the environment. Or did I misunderstand that?
No, I thought wasn't it saying that they're gonna have still have some EVs?
Yeah, they will still have them, but they're removing the funding for different programs that I guess allow rebates for
Mhm.
purchasing some of them
Okay,
and
yeah.
some of the equipment.
Mhm.
This next section looks like it has something to do with it too, with the Clean Air Act and everything else.
Mhm.
Trump says, yeah, we can deal with a little dirtier air.
Mhm.
It's
I
been
had
dirty, but it ain't that bad.
right.
This section repeals funding for a variety of programs that provide incentives to monitor and reduce air pollution and greenhouse gases, including funding for grants and other activities to deploy, integrate, support, and maintain stations, technology, and other methods to monitor air toxins. Expand the National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring Network with new multi-pollutant monitoring stations. Replace, repair, operate, and maintain existing monitors. Deploy, integrate, and operate air quality sensors in low-income and disadvantaged communities. Address emissions from wood heaters. Monitor emissions of methane. conduct research and development related to the prevention and control of air pollution, and encourage states to adopt and implement greenhouse gas and zero-emission standards for mobile sources.
So if you got a wood burning stove at home, you might want to be a little bit more conscious on monitoring that, because the funding is being pulled for agencies,
Wait,
at least encouraging agencies to come out and check on your emissions, on your greenhouse gas emissions.
mm-hmm.
Medicaid, Subtitle D, Health. I'm sure this is going to be a big section. Here's also the AI and information technology. You asked about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Part 2: Artificial Intelligence and Information Technology Modernization. Secretary 43201. This section prohibits states and localities from limiting, restricting, or otherwise regulating artificial intelligence, AI, models, AI systems, or automated decision systems entered into interstate commerce for 10 years. This prohibition does not apply to any state law or regulation, the primary purpose and effect of which is to remove legal impediments to facilitate the deployment or operation of, or consolidate administrative procedures in a manner that facilitates the adoption of AI models, AI systems, or automated decision systems. That does not impose substantive design, performance, data handling, documentation, civil liability, taxation, fee, or other requirements on AI models, AI systems, or automated decision systems, unless such requirements are imposed under federal law or are generally applicable to other models and systems that perform similar functions. That imposes only fees and bonds that are reasonable and cost-based and treat other models and systems that perform similar functions in the same manner as AI models, AI systems, and automated decision systems, or the violation of which carries a criminal penalty. This section also provides specified funds to the Department of Commerce to modernize and secure federal information technology systems through the replacement of some existing systems and the deployment of commercial AI and automation technologies. Specifically, Commerce must use funds appropriated under this section to 1. Replace or modernize legacy business systems with commercial AI and automated decision systems. 2. Facilitate the adoption of AI models that increase efficiency and service delivery. And 3. Improve the cybersecurity of federal information technology systems through modernized architecture, automated threat detection, and integrated AI solutions. Under this section, AI is defined as a machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing real or virtual environments. An AI model is a software component of an information system that implements AI technology and uses computational, statistical, or machine learning techniques to produce outputs from a defined set of inputs. An AI system is any data system, hardware, tool, or utility that operates in whole or in part using AI. An automated decision system is any computational process derived from machine learning, statistical modeling, data analytics, or AI that issues a simplified output, for example a score, classification, or recommendation, to materially influence or replace human decision-making.
So in other words, nothing is going to stop the U.S. from becoming the on the for, gaining the advantage on the forefront of AI technology.
Hmm.
Is that what you were looking for?
Um, I guess that. I guess so.
What you think about that?
You know how I feel about AI. I I don't trust it. Um, Now can you explain what they were saying, like what they're going to be using it for? That last part kind of made my ears open up a little bit more.
They were not specifying what they were using it for. They were
Hmm.
really giving a broad spectrum field of any possibilities or any anything they may use it for. They were blocking any legislation that may come against AI technology federally.
So I know they said that it was something about for the next 10 years. That's what I was kind of listening for. Something about AI in the next 10 years.
Yeah, that legislation is going to last 10 years.
Okay. What do you think?
I gave my thoughts already.
What?
I think it's going to be very advantageous for us financially, but who knows where that AI technology is going to go. They
Right.
already saying that it's thinking for itself and already stopping humans from shutting it down and everything else.
Right.
It's leaving notes for itself and warning its future self about human intervention, etc.
Hmm. Yeah. You know, if I didn't know what I knew about AI, then I probably would fall for it. Like, okay, but what I
Yeah,
know
that's
about
one
AI,
section. We just have to really see where it goes.
yeah, yeah.
Part 1 Medicaid. Subpart A Reducing Fraud and Improving Enrollment Processes. Secretary 44103. This section requires the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, to establish a centralized system for states to check whether enrollees are simultaneously enrolled in Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, in multiple states. Beginning no later than 2027, states must regularly obtain the addresses of Medicaid and CHIP enrollees from specified authorized sources. Beginning no later than FY 2030, states must report on at least a monthly basis the Social Security numbers of enrollees to the CMS newly established system. The CMS must notify states on at least a monthly basis of individuals who are enrolled in multiple states so that states may take appropriate action. The section provides funds for FY 2026 and FY 2029 for the CMS to establish and maintain the new system, respectively.
That should decrease the fraud and make things a lot more efficient
Mm-hmm.
because there was a lot
Right.
of people that was enrolled on Medicaid in multiple states. I saw
Mm-hmm.
them getting busted.
Mm. Wow. Like you need Medicare in every state.
Well, they know they don't need Medicare in every state. They ain't living in every state. They only living in one state at a time, but people was receiving benefits in multiple states.
Right.
This section requires state Medicaid programs to check. Beginning in 2028, the Social Security Administration's Death Master file on at least a quarterly basis to determine whether Medicaid enrollees are deceased. Secretary 44105. This section requires state Medicaid programs to check. Beginning in 2028, as part of the provider enrollment and re-enrollment process, whether providers were terminated from participating in the Medicare program, any other state Medicaid program, or CHIP using certain databases, for example the data exchange system. The section requires states to continue to check these databases on at least a monthly basis after providers are enrolled. Secretary 44106. This section provides statutory authority for the requirement that state Medicaid programs check, as part of the provider enrollment and re-enrollment process, whether providers are deceased through the Social Security Administration's Death Master file. Beginning in 2028, the section requires states to continue to check this database on at least a quarterly basis after providers are enrolled. Secretary 44108. This section requires state Medicaid programs to redetermine every 6 months, beginning on December 31, 2026, the eligibility of individuals who are enrolled in Medicaid as part of the Medicaid expansion population under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. The Act allows states to extend Medicaid coverage to all adults under the age of 65 with incomes of up to 138% of the federal poverty level, including able-bodied adults without dependent children. Secretary 44111. This section reduces by 10%. Beginning in FY 2028, the enhanced federal matching rate for the Medicaid expansion population in states that provide comprehensive health benefits or financial assistance for purchasing health benefits to individuals, other than children or pregnant women, who are not lawfully residing in the United States, regardless of the source of the benefits or financial assistance.
Did that cover what you were looking for?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yep. Yep. I was just, yeah, you know what? What I was actually looking for? I was looking for the what's it called, a folklore, where they was gonna cut Medicaid off. Like I'm gonna just flat out say the Democrats keep saying. I was waiting to hear about when they were gonna cut. I mean, if they were gonna cut Medicaid, cut it off.
I see where they're reducing the fraudulent claims, but I don't see where they're cutting it off.
Right. I was just wondering. That's what we're being told. I mean, I'm not gonna say we because I'm not a Democrat, but that's what the Democrats are being told by the Democrats. I knew
Yeah,
it wasn't
well,
in there,
so
but
far I haven't seen it.
hmm I knew it wasn't in there because people who do their research usually know. But
Well, I mean, hey, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's
all
still in
right,
here and we haven't got to it yet.
okay, all right. Well, let's see. You could be right.
44,131. This section requires states that had not chosen to expand Medicaid pursuant to the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act prior to March 11, 2021, to do so by January 1, 2026, in order to receive the corresponding enhanced federal matching rate. Secretary 44,132. This section generally precludes states from instituting new or otherwise increasing Medicaid provider taxes. Specifically, the section precludes the revenue from any Medicaid provider tax that is newly imposed or increased by a state from qualifying for federal matching payments. Secretary 44,133. This section provides funds through FY 2033 for the CMS to revise regulations so as to limit state-directed payments for inpatient hospital services, outpatient hospital services, nursing facility services, or qualified practitioner services at an academic medical center under Medicaid managed care contracts to the payment rate for services under Medicare, rather than the average commercial rate. For states that cover the Medicaid expansion population, payment is limited to 100% of the Medicare rate. For other states, payment is limited to 110% of the Medicare rate.
That's pretty much self-explanatory. You think?
Increasing personal accountability. Secretary 44141. This section requires, beginning not later than December 31st, 2026, or earlier, at the option of the state, individuals who are eligible for Medicaid as part of the Medicaid expansion population to engage in community service, work, or other activities in order to qualify for Medicaid. Specifically, the section requires these individuals to, on a monthly basis, 1. Work at least 80 hours. 2. Complete at least 80 hours of community service. 3. Participate in a work program for at least 80 hours. 4. Be enrolled at least half-time in an educational program. Or 5. Engage in any combination thereof for a total of at least 80 hours. Individuals may also qualify if they have a monthly income that is at least as much as the equivalent of minimum wage multiplied by 80 hours. Individuals who are applying for Medicaid must demonstrate compliance with these requirements for 1 month or more, as determined by the state, consecutively and immediately prior to filing an application. Individuals who are already enrolled in Medicaid must demonstrate compliance for 1 month or more, as determined by the state, whether or not consecutive, during the period between the individual's last eligibility determination and the next scheduled eligibility determination. States must verify an individual's compliance upon a determination or redetermination of eligibility but may also choose to verify compliance more frequently. States may not waive the new requirements. However, states may choose to provide an exception for individuals experiencing short-term hardships, for example hospitalization. The section excludes certain individuals from these requirements, including those with serious medical conditions or dependent children. The section provides funds for FY 2026 for states and the CMS to implement these requirements.
That sounds pretty self-explanatory to me. Um, I, I think there's some important words here. This section excludes certain individuals from these requirements, including those with serious medical conditions or dependent children. Like, if you don't have those, then why ain't you working anyway? Is my question. You there?
I'm sorry, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I had it on mute. My background noise isn't coming through.
Okay.
But I was saying that, yeah, I agree with you. Like, if you are able bodied, why are you not working? It's sad that somebody should have to tell you that. But
Yeah, it seems like this basically keeps people from leeching off of the system.
exactly. And then you got people, again, and this is coming from the Democrats, and you can't, there's no way that you can get around the system. Well, they have been. If you are on it and you're not working, and you are able bodied, that's an
Without
example right
children.
there. without dependence, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a prime
This section
example.
requires, beginning in FY 2029, states to institute cost-sharing requirements for individuals who are eligible for Medicaid as part of the Medicaid expansion population and whose family income exceeds the federal poverty line. Cost sharing may not exceed $35 for an item or service. Total cost sharing for all individuals in a family may not exceed 5% of the family's income. The requirements do not apply to services for which cost sharing is already prohibited, for example emergency services, or to primary care, mental health, or substance use disorder services. States may allow providers to condition the provision of services upon the payment of any required cost sharing.
Sounds fair.
Right.
Affordable Care Act.
This section modifies enrollment, coverage, and other aspects of health insurance exchanges beginning in 2026, including prohibiting the mandate of special enrollment periods based on income, requiring verification of income and other eligibility requirements prior to certain enrollments, and prohibiting coverage of gender transition procedures as an essential health benefit. Secretary 44202. This section provides funds beginning in 2026 for payments to qualified health plans for purposes of reducing cost sharing for certain individuals with incomes between 100% and 400% of the federal poverty line. Plans that provide coverage for abortions in cases other than that of rape, incest, or life-threatening conditions for the mother are not eligible for these funds.
So yeah, I heard some things that stood
Mhm.
out to me in that one too.
Yeah, me too. Like,
Prohibiting coverage of gender transition procedures as an
yeah,
essential health benefit.
yeah,
I agree that that is not
essential.
essential. You know, if you really couldn't afford the transition, then I don't
Right.
think it's fair for you to just take tax dollars and do something like that.
I mean, because if that's the case, people. What about people who want their teeth implants? What about people who don't like their nose? What about people who don't like their body? You know, should the insurance cover uh, BBLs and cosmetic things and things that we just choose to want that
Exactly.
we don't have to have?
Right. So now it's the government's job to physically make you happy with your body.
Right, right, right.
There's nothing wrong
Financially,
with it. It's just that you're not happy with it.
right. Well, I'm not happy with. It's been things I haven't been happy with in life, and the government didn't step in to fix my issues. So
Yeah, I mean
I'm the
that's
fact
not
that
fair. I mean, why would we be financing gender transition where there's people out here who need medical procedures they can't afford?
right,
I
right.
mean, like medical procedures that deal with their overall health and,
That's essential. Right,
right, right, from illness, not from
exactly.
unhappiness.
Right, right,
I think the unhappiness should be addressed through mental health first. Don't
right.
they do counsel? Don't they give those people counseling before they allow them to just transition in this
They
country?
give them a brief period of counseling, and I think it's more just to say that they did, so that it doesn't fall on them to look like, hey, they didn't know that these were going to be the issues that came behind it. We told them because they don't go through like long term counseling. I remember a lady on TikTok saying that she worked for what do you call it, a surgeon, a plastic surgeon, and so she said he didn't have any kids, but he had, a few kids come and he referred them to somebody else. And I was telling her about the mental part of it. And she's like, oh, we give them counseling. I said, but what counseling? Even with counseling, what counseling can? It's just like, for example, you got to get your leg amputated. You can go to counseling all day long ahead of time. Like, hey, when you get it out, your leg cut off, you're not gonna be able to walk. You probably don't feel this, that, this, and that. But when it actually happens, and just because you tell somebody doesn't mean that once it happens, they're gonna just adjust to it because they have some counseling. Once they start feeling the physical pain or coming to the conclusion like, oh my God, I did this and I can't reverse it, or if they get to the point where they want to go back and now they can't go back because they done chopped off something, or you know, now it's gonna be some other issues and you're gonna need future stuff as well. I don't think the funding will ever stop for that.
Right, because behind that may come the regret counseling and everything else.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
suicide prevention counseling.
Exactly.
Where does it
Medication.
stop?
Exactly. Then I want to go back and be what I used to be, surgery and who knows what, you know? Anything else interesting?
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of interesting things in here, but I'm just looking for the things mainly that people were so afraid of with
Minor.
this bill.
Mm,
And so far, I haven't come across those scary things yet.
right.
I'm still looking for them.
So let
Um,
me read this to you. And this is about the Medicaid enrollees. Uh, let me see. So this says, so why did the GOP slash deeply into the health insurance program in its mega bill? So it says three reasons. Republicans desperately need money to avoid a big tax increase next year. They wanted to claw back Biden era policies. GOP lawmakers say led to lax eligibility checks and more fraudulent benefits, and they wanted to curb the Medicaid expansion enacted by President Barack Obama and congressional Democrats in the Affordable Care Act. To me, that sounds pretty sarcastic, you know? And this is off of Politico, but does that sound sarcastic to you? Like a folklore?
no, well, we seen some cuts and preventions there that we read over, and it most of them made sense to us. You know,
Right.
things that they were blocking.
So it says the bill targets unsustainable spending by adding work requirements and restricting tools states use to get more federal dollars, not the benefits of people who really need them.
Yeah, well, we saw the work requirements were for able-bodied adults without dependents,
Right, right.
ABODs, and
Abroad.
if I don't understand why ABODs are complaining. I wish I was an able-bodied adult without
Right.
dependents. You'd have to pry me off the job site. Like,
Right.
seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm forced to work at home because, one, as you know, I'm in a wheelchair. Two, I have dependents. I got to be
Right.
on top of my game. I got to be a hustler.
Exactly. Even in your situation, you're not sitting back just doing nothing. And you got people who are able bodied sitting back not doing nothing. Even me, like I can't just sit back and not do nothing and I'm injured. I don't know how you live like that, how people live like that.
I don't know why this section didn't play. Hold on. Let me try it again. Why is it not playing?
Mm, not to go off the subject.
Let me reload the page.
Okay. Well, we could. You stopped it.
What was the subject change?
Well, never mind. I wasn't going to change the subject really. I was going to comment on something I just saw while you were, you know, doing what you were doing on your end.
Go ahead while the page is reloading.
So, are we recording?
Yes. Do you want to
Oh,
wait until we're not?
no. I was just reading this little statement that they put up about the boy Carmelo Anthony and how his parents are getting it said his parents are getting slammed for blowing through $540,000 in donations and asking for an additional 1.4 million.
Okay,
What?
let's do that on another video. That's a whole nother issue.
What? Okay.
Make American families and workers thrive again. Part 1, Permanently Preventing Tax Hikes on American Families and Workers. This part makes permanent multiple individual federal tax provisions enacted in 2017 by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Below are some examples of provisions in this part. Secretary 110,001. This section makes permanent the individual tax rates of 10%, 12%, 22%, 24%, 32%, 35%, and 37%. Secretary 110,002. This section makes permanent the increased standard deduction and provides an additional increase in the standard deduction in the amount of $1,000 or $2,000 for joint filers and $1,500 for head of household filers through 2028. Secretary 110,003. This section permanently repeals the allowance of a deduction for personal exemptions.
That sounded pretty good for the most part.
Tax exemptions.
Yeah, and it makes the increase of the child tax credit permanent. I like that.
Wow. Yeah, I love that.
This section increases the maximum amount of the child tax credit to $2,500 per qualifying child through 2028 and extends the maximum amount of the child tax credit of $2,000, originally enacted as part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, beginning in 2029. Further, this section adjusts the maximum amount of the child tax credit for inflation beginning in 2029. This section also makes permanent the phase-out threshold of $200,000, or $400,000 for joint filers, $500 non-refundable child tax credit for each dependent, who is not a qualifying child, and refundable portion of the child tax credit for taxpayers who meet certain requirements.
That
Now,
also
did that?
sounded good to me.
Yeah, but the question for me is that starting in 2029 or until 2029?
Um, it starts in 2029,
Wow.
beginning in
So
2029. They need to begin that now.
right, he'll be out of office by then.
The increase is immediate though, through 2028.
Oh, and then it'll what start back in 2029, or that's a separate something separate.
They're going to adjust it for inflation in 2029.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Additional tax relief. Hey, let's see what this section says.
Two additional tax relief for American families and workers. This part establishes multiple new above-the-line tax deductions and makes other changes to individual-related federal tax provisions. Above-the-line deductions are subtracted from gross income to calculate adjusted gross income. Below are some examples of provisions in this part. Secretary 110,101. This section establishes a new above-the-line tax deduction through 2028 for qualified tip income for individuals whose earned income does not exceed a certain amount, $160,000 in 2025 and adjusted annually for inflation. To be eligible for the tax deduction for qualified tip income, taxpayers must provide a work-eligible Social Security number for themselves and their spouse, if filing jointly. Secretary 110,102. This section establishes a new above-the-line tax deduction through 2028 for qualified overtime income for individuals whose earned income does not exceed a certain amount, $160,000 in 2025 and adjusted annually for inflation. To be eligible for the tax deduction for qualified overtime income, taxpayers must provide a work-eligible Social Security number for themselves and their spouse, if filing jointly. Secretary 110,103. This section increases by $4,000 per individual through 2028, the additional standard deduction amount for individuals who are 65 or older. The additional increase in the standard deduction for individuals who are 65 or older also may be claimed by taxpayers who itemize deductions, but phases out for taxpayers with modified adjusted gross income that exceeds $75,000 or $150,000 for joint filers. Further, to be eligible for the increased standard deduction for individuals who are 65 or older, the taxpayer and the taxpayer's spouse, if filing jointly, must provide a work-eligible Social Security number. Secretary 110,104. This section establishes a new above-the-line tax deduction of up to $10,000 for interest paid on indebtedness incurred in 2025 through 2028 to buy a passenger vehicle for personal use. The tax deduction phases out for taxpayers with modified adjusted gross income that exceeds $100,000 or $200,000 for joint filers. Secretary 110,105. This section increases the tax credit for employers that provide child care to their employees. Under this section, the portion of the tax credit for qualified child care expenses increases to 40%, from 25%, or to 50% for eligible small businesses. This section also increases the maximum amount of the tax credit to $500,000, from $150,000, or $600,000 for eligible small businesses, adjusted for inflation. Secretary 110,110. This section expands the expenses eligible for tax-free withdrawals from qualified tuition programs, 529 plans, to include certain additional expenses related to elementary, secondary, or homeschool education. Secretary 110,111. This section expands the expenses eligible for tax-free withdrawals from 529 plans to include tuition, fees, books, supplies, equipment, and other expenses related to the enrollment or attendance in a recognized post-secondary credentialing program. Secretary 110,112. This section establishes a tax deduction of up to $150, or $300 for joint filers, for charitable contributions by taxpayers who do not itemize their tax deductions. Secretary 110,115. This section establishes a new type of tax-advantaged account, called Trump accounts, for individuals under 8 years old. Up to $5,000 per year, adjusted for inflation, may be contributed to a Trump account, not including certain rollovers, and distributions may be used for certain education-related expenses, small business expenses, and the purchase of a principal residence by a first-time homebuyer. Some limitations apply. Secretary 110,116. This section authorizes a one-time federal government deposit of $1,000 into a Trump account for individuals born between 2025 and 2029 who meet certain other requirements. For more information, see.
I guess I can
Wow,
blame my mother.
that sounds good.
Yeah. All I heard, no, I'm just playing. But did you hear about them? You can claim your parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what is that one called?
What is what one called?
The subject of that 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 area.
Additional tax relief for American families and workers.
Oh,
But yeah, a parent can be a dependent also.
wow. Well, you wanna close it down and come back later because I know this is a big, beautiful bill.
I don't know. It almost looks like we are near the bottom.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I've been skipping a lot of the irrelevant sections.
oh, okay.
This section here says investing in health of American family and workers. That can only be a bunch of good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Health savings accounts, additional tax relief for rural America and Main Street. Make America win again. Working families over elites. Now that section sounds interesting.
Very.
Let's listen to that.
Yeah.
And we believe that a year and some change to work on two things is a bit unreasonable. You didn't really spend 18 hours. You did some work, so you believe you were unsafe. And the conversation that you had with the through text is that you would have been
Motion detected at your front door.
Mm-hmm.
See, Make America Win Again. Part 1, Working Families over Elites. This part modifies, phases out, and terminates multiple energy-related federal tax credits. This part also modifies the federal tax deduction for state and local taxes and the excise tax imposed on the net investment income of certain organizations. Below are some examples of provisions in this part. Secretary 112,001. This section terminates the previously owned clean vehicle tax credit. Under current law, taxpayers may claim a tax credit of up to $4,000 for the purchase of a qualified previously owned clean vehicle before 2033. Secretary 112,002. This section terminates the clean vehicle tax credit. Under current law, taxpayers may claim a tax credit of up to $7,500 for the purchase of a qualified new clean vehicle before 2033. Secretary 112,003. This section terminates the qualified commercial clean vehicle tax credit. Under current law, businesses may claim a tax credit of up to $40,000 for the purchase of a commercial clean vehicle before 2033. Secretary 112,004. This section terminates the alternative fuel refueling property tax credit. Under current law, tax credit of up to $1,000 for individuals or up to $100,000 for businesses is allowed for the installation of property before 2033 that is used to store or dispense clean burning fuel or to recharge electric vehicles. Secretary 112,005. This section terminates the energy efficient home improvement tax credit. Under current law, taxpayers may claim a tax credit of up to $3,200 for certain energy-efficient property purchased and installed into a primary residence before 2033. Secretary 112,006. This section terminates the residential clean energy tax credit. Under current law, taxpayers may claim a tax credit for certain renewable energy equipment for a principal residence before 2034. Secretary 112,007. This section terminates the new energy-efficient home tax credit. Under current law, contractors may claim a business tax credit for constructing an energy-efficient home that is acquired by a person for use as a residence before 2033. Secretary 112,008. This section generally terminates the clean electricity production tax credit for an otherwise qualified facility placed into service after 2028 or for which construction begins after 60 days from the date of enactment of this section, with a limited exception for certain advanced nuclear facilities. Under current law, a tax credit is available for the production and sale of zero-emissions electricity by a qualified facility placed into service after 2024. This section also disallows the clean electricity production tax credit for certain foreign entities, facilities that receive material assistance from certain foreign entities, and taxpayers that make certain types of payments to certain foreign entitles. Secretary 112,009. This section generally terminates the clean electricity investment tax credit for an otherwise qualified facility placed into service after 2028 or for which construction begins after 60 days from the date of enactment of this section, with a limited exception for certain advanced nuclear facilities. Under current law, a tax credit is available for investments in qualified energy property by a facility that produces zero-emissions electricity that is placed into service after 2024. This section also disallows the clean electricity investment tax credit for certain foreign entities, facilities that receive material assistance from certain foreign entities, and taxpayers that make certain types of payments to certain foreign entitles. Secretary 112,012. This section accelerates the expiration of the zero-emission nuclear power production tax credit to December 31, 2031, from December 31, 2032. Under current law, a tax credit is available for qualified nuclear power facility before 2033. This section also disallows the zero-emission nuclear power production tax credit for certain foreign entities. Secretary 112,013. This section terminates the clean hydrogen production tax credit. Under current law, a tax credit is available for the production of clean hydrogen by a qualifying facility for which construction begins before 2033. Secretary 112,014. This section phases out the advanced manufacturing production tax credit. Under current law, a tax credit is available for certain inverters, solar energy components, wind energy components, qualified battery components, and critical minerals produced and sold before 2033. This section also disallows the advanced manufacturing production tax credit for certain foreign entities, facilities that receive material assistance from certain foreign entities, and taxpayers that make certain types of payments to certain foreign entities. Secretary 112,015. This section accelerates the phase-out of the energy investment tax credit for investments in certain geothermal facilities. Under this section, to be eligible for the tax credit, the construction on the geothermal facility must begin before 2032. Under current law, the energy investment tax credit is available for investments in geothermal facility for which construction begins before 2035. This section also disallows the energy investment tax credit for certain foreign entities, facilities that receive material assistance from certain foreign entities, and taxpayers that make certain types of payments to certain foreign entities. Secretary 112,018. This section increases the limitation on the federal tax deduction for state and local taxes, commonly known as the SALT deduction cap, to $40,400, or $20,200 for married individuals filing separately. Under this section, the SALT deduction cap is reduced for taxpayers with an adjusted gross income over $505,000, or $202,500 for married individuals filing separately, but not below $10,000, or $5,000 for married individuals filing separately. The section increases the dollar amounts for the limitations on the SALT deduction by 1% per year for tax years 2027 to 2033 and establishes a permanent limitation for subsequent years that is equal to the 2033 levels. This section also prohibits the SALT deduction for foreign real property taxes, other than foreign real property taxes paid or accrued by certain entities in carrying out a trade or business. Prohibits certain partnerships and S corporations from claiming the SALT deduction for specific taxes, and limits the SALT deduction for payments made to a state or local jurisdiction that generate a specific tax benefit. Secretary 112,021. This section replaces the excise tax of 1.4% imposed on the net investment income of certain private university and college endowments with a new rate structure of 1.4%, 7%, 14%, or 21%, depending on several variables including the value of the endowment and the number of full-time students who meet certain other requirements. Secretary 112,029. This section removes firearm silencers from the definition of a firearm under the National Firearms Act of 1934 and eliminates the $200 excise tax on the making or transfer of firearm silencers. For more information, see.
That was a lot right there. I didn't mean
Yeah,
for her to unpack all that at once, but
right. I don't even know where to go back to. I can't even remember.
well, the tax on the firearm, the silencers, I know a lot of people been waiting on that.
Mhm.
So they probably just stopped buying until they actually enact this because they can get a lot of those silencers, especially in Texas, without that $200 excise tax
Yeah.
that they're talking about. And before that, in the other section, for all those people, I guess, to summarize that summary of that section, if you can afford solar panels, then you don't need the tax break. If you can
So,
afford to build a nuclear plant, then you probably don't need a tax break. That was
then,
those.
was that us that heard that they were taking unemployment away from the millionaires?
You saw that?
Yeah, we were looking through earlier and saw that. But I mean, you don't have to play it, but that's what somebody read through this bill. Uh, out of summary.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I that's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around. It's millionaires receiving what kind of benefits?
Unemployment. No,
Yeah, I didn't come across that.
it's in there. That's what, because that's where we were reading from. I didn't read it, but she was reading it to us.
Well, I like it. It's
Right.
probably one of those sections I just skipped through because I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't see
Right.
where. I mean, that should be a good thing. I don't know why people would be crying about that.
No. No.
This
Well,
one sounds. Go ahead.
the thing is that, like you say, why would you need that if you're a millionaire? Even if you do, and working people. I mean, unemployment is for able-bodied people who can work, who might have lost their job. But I mean, are you gonna run out of your millions before you find another job?
I can see rich people crying about that, but they're not about to starve to death next week. They're not living check to check. So in
Exactly.
essence, they don't need unemployment.
Right. And the second point is that I thought, Trump was for the rich.
Let me start this next section.
All of his policies help the rich. Okay.
Two, removing taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. This part modifies eligibility requirements for the premium tax credit and certain other tax credits. This part also imposes an excise tax on certain remittance transfers. Below are some examples of provisions in this part. Secretary 112,101. This section allows lawfully present aliens to claim the premium tax credit to purchase health insurance on an exchange only if they meet certain requirements, subject to exceptions provided in Secretary 112,102. Secretary 112,102. This section repeals the rule that allows certain lawfully present aliens who have a household income of less than 100% of the federal poverty level and are ineligible for Medicaid, based on the individual's alien status, to claim the premium tax credit. Secretary 112,103. This section limits Medicare benefits to an individual who is a U.S. citizen or national, an alien who is lawfully admitted for permanent residence, an alien who is a Cuban citizen or national and meets certain requirements, or an individual who is lawfully residing in the United States in accordance with the Compacts of Free Association between the United States and Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, and Palau. This section also requires the Social Security Administration to identify individuals who do not meet the Medicare eligibility requirements of this section, and to notify such individuals of the termination, 1 year from the date this section is enacted, of their Medicare benefits. Secretary 112,104. This section establishes a 3.5% excise tax on transfers of payments from one country to another, also known as remittance transfers. Some exceptions apply. Secretary 112,105. This section requires a Social Security number to be eligible for the American Opportunity and Lifetime Learning Tax Credits. For more information, see CRS Report R 44,425, Health Insurance Premium Tax Credit and Cost Sharing Reductions. CRS Report R 48,290, Enhanced Premium Tax Credit Expiration, Frequently Asked Questions. Part 3, Prevent Fraud, Waste, and Abuse. This part modifies multiple federal tax administrative and penalty provisions. Below are some examples of provisions in this part. Secretary 112,205. This section establishes a new certification program for claiming the Earned Income Tax Credit. Secretary 112,206. This section directs the Internal Revenue Service to terminate the Direct File program. Secretary 112,207. This section increases the penalties for the unauthorized disclosure of taxpayer information. For more information, see CRS Report R 43,805. The Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC, how it works and who receives it. Subtitle D, Increase in Debt Limit. This section increases the statutory debt limit by $4 trillion. The debt limit is the amount of money that the Department of the Treasury may borrow to fund federal operations.
So that first section was probably where they figured that 17 million people are going to get cut off.
I forgot what the first section said.
Removing taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
They're removing the taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants because they're not taxpayers. Why would they
Right.
be getting taxpayer benefits?
Benefits. Exactly. That's a great question.
Right. And the next section was limiting the Medicare benefits to individuals who um, are U.S. citizens or national, aliens who are lawfully admitted for permanent residence, aliens who an alien who is a Cuban citizen, an individual who is lawfully residing in the United States according with the compacts of free association between the United States and Micronesia, Marshall Islands, and Palau. So there's limits on those, but right here it's kind of broad where it says this section limits Medicare benefits to an individual who is a U.S. citizen or a national. That's kind of blanket right there. So
Okay, say it one more time. It limits to
it
a
limits
U.S. citizen.
Medicare benefits to an individual who is a U.S. citizen or a national. So I guess that means that only these people who are listed here would qualify for Medicare benefits. That's unless
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like
No, because
misinterpreting this. It
no, I
says
think
this
that's right.
section limits Medicare benefits to an individual who is a
Yeah,
U.S. citizen or national,
yeah.
an alien who is lawfully admitted for permanent residence, an alien who is a Cuban citizen
hmm
or national and meets requirements, an individual who is lawfully residing in the United States in accordance of the compacts of free association between the United States and Micronesia and the Marshall Islands and Palau. So
Yeah.
if you're not one of those, then you
You
don't
don't
get
qualify.
Medicare benefits.
Right.
So maybe that's where they come up with the figure of 17 million people getting cut off.
Yeah, it sounds more. That sounds more like it because I was wondering, like, I heard the Democrats saying it's going to be 17, whatever, and I'm like, well, how do they know how many people? You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you meet the work requirements, you won't get cut off.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like they already have a count of people who don't meet the requirements, and they already also have an account of the illegal immigrants that are receiving benefits.
I think it's strictly for the illegal immigrants because if for anybody that don't qualify now, they got time to look for a job or go to school. You know what I mean? Like they can just hurry up and do that. And it's not even in yet. So they don't know how many people, like just say like able bodied working people. That's gonna be left up to them if they get kicked off for that. So that's like a maybe not, but not necessarily. But they're saying it like they know the number. They have a number.
Right. They specify 17 million.
Right. That's
So
why
they
I
must
believe.
have an idea somewhere between
hmm
illegal immigrants and unqualified individuals. They have to have some type of ballpark figure for them to say
That's
17 million. They
right.
didn't say 15, they didn't say 16 and a half.
Right.
They
10.
said 17 million
You're right.
specifically. How they
Right.
know it's not 20 million?
You're right. That's what I'm saying. It's something that they already know, like We about to cut
Well, I doubt
20%.
very seriously that they would have 17 million able-bodied
Exactly.
able-bodied adults without dependents. That's kind of excessive.
Right, right.
I don't believe that for one bit. So
And an
that
able-bodied person is just gonna go ahead and do that 20 hours. So they still would get to keep it. That won't be a cut. You get what I'm saying? Now some
right.
might not, but I would doubt that I doubt that they won't apply with that. If that's
I
what
doubt that they wouldn't comply to. I seriously
yeah.
doubt that.
Right.
So the ones that probably wouldn't comply are the ones who can't,
Yeah,
which it
right.
would be of this section right here of the people who are not a
Hmm.
U.S. citizen, a national,
Hmm.
etc.
Right. And
A
probably some
lawfully admitted alien, a Cuban.
right, right,
Right. If you're not none of those, then you don't qualify. So that's
right.
probably where they're losing the 17
Yeah,
million.
yeah.
That's the
'Cause
only
they still
place I
gotta
can see.
deport. Hmm.
Yeah. It's you haven't self-deported, so now
Hmm.
your support system is about to be cut.
Exactly.
No health care, no SNAP benefits, no none of that
Right,
for you.
right,
And I kind of like that.
right.
Yeah, I
Yep.
kind of like that. That makes it where they can actually afford to give those benefits to the American citizens who qualify, need them, and haven't been getting it because those subsidies have been drained.
Hmm.
Is this the bottom of the bill here?
Looks like it. Unless there's
Yeah,
another page.
so I don't see a page two.
Okay.
So in there, I didn't see anything about them deporting black people, quote unquote
No
black
slave
people.
ships.
I didn't see anything about slave ships in there.
Hmm.
I seen some defense funding, and I didn't see too many extreme cuts in here for anybody. Like I saw those people protesting on the at Congress talking about we're gonna die. I don't see anything in here that's gonna kill anybody.
Well, the funny part is everything they say don't happen. That's I'm like, when are people gonna stop believing? And I know you don't believe it, but when are people gonna stop believing what what they say? I mean, to
Right,
go to that extreme, we're gonna die, we're gonna die. Really? Like you went
right.
to that extreme? Like that's serious fear mongering.
And I don't believe legacy media is causing people to go through these extremes either. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Legacy media is saying clearly, I clearly hear them saying that these things could happen
yeah, or they
because
may have.
they either hadn't read the bill or they hadn't read it distinctly, or they're just fear mongering.
Right.
I personally believe they're fear mongering.
Yeah, they know that what they're saying is not true. They're just, like you said, fear mongering. So
Yeah,
they word it in a way where they can't be held, like nobody can blame them. Like, no, we didn't say that that was happening. We said that it may happen.
I think they wanted to do exactly what they accused Donald Trump of doing before, blocking their bills and their proposals because he wanted to do it. I think
Right,
this is another case where they're trying to stop him from doing some things that they wanted to do,
right.
along with some things that they did not want to do, some things that they were unwilling to do, like cut off their funding for their projects,
Mhm.
for their government protest projects. That's just
Right,
crazy to me. I'm
right.
still trying to wrap my mind around government funding for organizations to protest the
To go
government.
against
Like,
the government. Exactly.
yeah, can somebody explain that to me, please? I know you're the only person around, but you know,
Yeah, in one word. Huh? in one word.
I'm waiting.
Corruption.
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 America corrupt? United States
Honest-
corrupt? No, couldn't be.
yes. Yes. Those jokers within the government, our senators and like, uh, I mean, man, criminals, and they want to talk about Trump for some paper. Uh, 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 what is it called? Um, hold on one second.
Well, actually, I think this is a good place to end this one because it looks like we ran through that bill from top to bottom, and I personally didn't see anything to be afraid of. I didn't see anything that warranted their fear mongering or
Right.
uh, anything else. I don't even think we had to go through the list of folklore of things we heard because we just scanned that bill from top to bottom, and I didn't
On
see.
everything that we heard.
Yeah, I didn't see
Now, was
anything relating to those crazy rumors that I heard anyway.
right,
So on that
right.
note, we are out.